Hi everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf, the show for PR and marketing pros like you, hosted by Beck Bamberger of BAM. BAM is a communications agency that believes stories move the world. We move stories forward for technology-driven brands that challenge, change, and create entire industries. Today, on the Dear BAMf podcast, we're talking with Whitney Curry, Chief Marketing Officer at Pacaso. As Pacaso CMO, Whitney is responsible for driving demand, building brand, and creating exceptional customer experiences online and off. She launched her career at Zillow as the startup's first intern. Throughout her 12-year tenure, she held leadership positions in marketing and PR and played a key role in growing the brand into a household name. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dear BAMf, the podcast for PR and marketing pros such as yourself. We are well into season 2 here, and I'm happy to tell you today we have the Miss Whitney Curry here with us from Pacaso.
Hello.
How are you, Whitney, up in Seattle?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited to have you, and we got juicy questions. We got all types of stuff to cover. So we will start a little bit with you, which is, do you want to give us the 60 seconds on your current company?
I would love to. So, Beck, I am leading marketing as CMO at Pacaso. And Pacaso is a new startup that was founded to solve the problem of second home underutilization. So there are 30 million, believe it or not, second homes in the US and Europe. And most of those homes sit unoccupied 10 to 11 months each year. Meanwhile, there's millions and millions of people who dream of owning a second home. So Pacaso has created a marketplace around this, allowing people to buy shares of a second home and experience true real estate ownership, but in a much more hassle-free environment. So we like to say it's the easy button for owning a second home.
It sounds kind of remind me, you have it right here on your website. Forget timeshares. Yeah, with those presentations and the tchotchkes that they try to send you to sign up for and stuff. I remember this from the 90s. So yeah.
I do love a good margarita, but unfortunately, those are not a part of our sales presentations. Our model is much more analogous actually to when people together own real estate in an LLC, which has been happening for generations. So think about in your friend group, I'm sure there's a group of friends that you can think of that said, we love this beach house. We're going to go in on it together. How they structure that is through an LLC. And up until Pacaso, what we call DIY co-ownership is certainly possible to do on your own. It's just a headache. It's a headache to set up and to manage. And oftentimes when personal relationships are involved, it can end in heartache because there's just so many points of potential friction. So Pacaso is a fully managed LLC co-ownership solution. It's tech enabled, and we take away all the interpersonal stress and hassle so that you can just show up and enjoy your second home.
Wow. I mean, some of these houses on here, these aren't little dingy condos in the middle of nowhere. FYI, people.
They are not.
Check out the website. These are like mega estate look at Napa Valley. Oh, okay. I'm going to be looking at this just for fun. I totally get the reason why. Because you're not so rich that you would just buy it yourself, but you're like, but I have enough money I could park somewhere, but I don't want to own the whole thing. Do you guys also then take care of the maintenance and all the stuff of the homes?
Every single thing. So we take care of the interior design, from picking what furniture is going to be in the furniture, linens, down to like a cheese cutter in the kitchen drawer, all the way through to maintenance. If something unfortunate happens, like a tree falls on the shed or something, we'll replace it. So literally every detail is taken care of. All of our scheduling so the owners have an owner group of no more than 8 co-owners for each home. And all of the scheduling and planning how you'll use your home and invoices, everything is done through the Pacaso owner app. So it's simple, easy to use, intuitive.
You learn something every day on this podcast. Thank you, Whitney, for that. Okay. Now, what would you say in the last year? It's been kind of a crazy year. We're taping this in 2020, but this will be out in 2021. What are you most proud of in the last 12 months accomplishing in your role?
Beck, can I stretch the time horizon there to 18 months?
You could do it.
All right. I'll stretch a little bit. I would say, I wish you could see me here. This is a podcast, but if it was on video, you could see me raising my hand. And I would say embracing a posture of openness to risk and new challenges and doing this practice of raising my hand or raising my flag. And what I mean by that is about 18 months ago, I took a big leap. After 12 years at Zillow, which is a real estate company, I started there as the company's first intern. It had been
What?
12, yes. And it had been 12 amazing years. I, started making copies in the copy office and ended up leading brand marketing. And so it had been an absolutely amazing, tremendous run. But I was ready for a change of scenery. And I announced that I was going to leave Zillow and take some time off to explore what I wanted to do next. And it was such a hard decision. I'm sure you've had to be in the place where when you're leaving something that is fantastic to go to something else that you want to be fantastic, but you don't know what that next step is going to be. It's risky. But I just knew in my heart, I said, I know I need to raise my flag. I need to create space where there's some white space to dream and think about what's next and see what comes. And so I kid you not, Becca, it had been a series of days, just days after announcing that I was planning on leaving, that I had my flag up. And opportunities started to come in. And these are all these amazing things that never would have materialized if I wouldn't have had my flag up, if I would have been just rooted in the status quo and in my prior role. So I think for me, the practice of flag raising and being open to change and new risk and challenges is really what I'm most proud of. That and attempting to make sourdough in the pandemic.
Yeah. How'd that go, by the way?
Not well.
It's very tricky, I hear. I have not attempted. I'm like, no, we don't need to do that.
I need to stay in my lane.
Yeah, soups. That's my lane.
Yes, soups with store-bought bread.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Now that you were at this company and previously at Zillow, do you have a favorite way in which you tell stories, especially with such fabulous pieces of real estate to visually showcase?
My current favorite, which has been a favorite for a couple of years now, but I continue to see dividends, is what I call hacky video. I've produced expensive, gorgeous video that runs on TV and big social activations and fancy things you're going to shoot for multiple days and all of that. But you know what? At the end of the day, you can get so much heart and emotion from user-generated content, from content that you're sourcing from your community on social, from literally Zooms that you're hitting the record button for and passing to a good editor and editing into this, great testimonial reel. There's so many ways that you can capture the heart and soul of a story, even if it's a simple direct to camera, shot on iPhone, shot on Zoom moment, because it really lets a story become the hero rather than getting trapped in all of those other elements of production, which, don't get me wrong, are beautiful and have a place. But I'm loving getting back to basics and focusing on the human element of the story, which can be told on the cheap.
And have you been able to easily secure that type of content, by the way? Because I'm sure there's some B2B people listening to this going like, yeah, how am I going to get that content?
Yes, we have. So right now I'm at Pacaso, which is a startup. And so as everyone knows, startup life means everyone's rolling up their sleeves and digging in as content creators. So I myself have captured tons of content, literally on Zoom recordings that we've been able to turn into really successful pieces of video we're running paid against, that we're running organically, sharing an email. I've also had other members of my sales team do the same. We've had local real estate agents capturing content for us. It's a little shaky, but while they're on site too. So you have to adjust your expectations and embrace the authenticity.
Yes, because that's about all you can get. Also, there are no reshoots.
No reshoots.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Whitney, let's go into the questions we have for the week. We got a couple juicy ones. Here is the first one. Dear BAMf, I'm struggling with how to push my startup to embrace some more bold messaging. I'm in charge of our brand and marketing, and we have some industry vets here that certainly make our B2B clients feel secure and safe with our cybersecurity offerings. The thing is, per my research and consulting with 2 external agencies on branding, this industry is marked by a lot of quote unquote scary messaging and dark colors. I'd like us to have a brand that conveys trust but stands out. Have you seen this done successfully elsewhere that I could maybe point to? I don't think my executive team can think of anything creative unless they see otherwise.
Gotta love those literal minds. We've all had the same conversation with an executive in our life or with a coworker. Well, I would say one word for you, which would be research. So brand building can be hard because it could be incredibly challenging work that can at times feel super subjective and fluid. And it gets really tricky when you get into a place, or even dare I say impossible, to win arguments with executive or other folks on your team if you're just in a, well, I think versus you think, really subjective debate. And you're climbing an uphill battle when you're fighting against things in their existing category that they see as negative. So what I would recommend doing, and how I've approached similar situations in the past, is to really build a case with data and put together that narrative, bring it to the executive team, and take seriously the art of putting together your case, that you're presenting the idea of a major change to your company. And this is something that should be prepared for, in a conversation that you should approach with great sensitivity, thinking around what the business goals are that you're trying to solve and what impact your change will have on the business. And when people hear, research and data, at times it can feel like, oh my gosh, well, I don't have time for that. I don't have budget for that. And I would say you do. It could be small.
For something this big, yeah,
yes, you do. And it can be scrappy. Think about simple, if you're testing the dark and scary messaging versus the light and airy, just to use a simple example from this question. Run a simple A/B test on Facebook. Do different message testing. That is quick, easy to turn, and you'll get near instant results. There's also simple tools. You could use a Survey Monkey or a similar product to be able to stand up. Even if you have an N of 500 or 1,000, you can run that survey on the cheap and get questions in front of audiences that mirror your cohort, and then do really simple filtering to put together a narrative arc that could fit into that presentation with your executives. And then lastly, on the research front, it's not just quantitative, but qualitative. Can you put together a focus group? Maybe it's not people who are pure strangers, but that's okay. Is it, past sales leads, people in the community, friends of friends of friends, and, have 10, 15, 20 conversations and aggregate some of the key themes and extracts that come back. And so now when you're having this conversation with your leadership, you've come with research that you've commissioned, both quantitative and qualitative. You've put together a really compelling narrative arc as to why you think something needs to change and how it will impact the business. That's how I would approach it.
Yeah, I like the emphasis on data. I'm sure this is already B2B and you're already in security and you're dealing with some vets, people who have been there, done that. One thing I would further suggest is, again, if you can, and this is maybe where you got to ask some favors, but if you could, we've done this before, mock up some examples. Go like, oh, you know what? Here are 3 ways that and maybe you do have some budget for this, which would be fine because people will do like some mock-ups, not your whole website, but maybe something with the brand. Here are 3 ways that other agencies or other designers have thought about rethinking our brand. Here's A, B, and C. What do you think? Like, see how it sits, because it definitely sounds like this person knows what they're dealing with and they need to have something tangible to point to. This is not something you can walk into and go like, well, it needs to be a little airy, but confident. Like, what is that going to do? There's nothing, no one's going to be able to bite onto that. So if you can maybe test in that way and actually get some visuals from a couple people who can do some mock-ups, that could go a long way. We've sold a handful of projects that way, where people are like, oh, now I see the difference, because we've come across, and it doesn't sound like this may be the case in this person's situation, but we've come across of like, well, our website, it's fine. It's good. And we go, oh, okay. And we're trying to sell this to the media. So then we go, here's some examples of what it could be, 10x'd it. And then when people can see that, they change their mind. That could perhaps be your approach here.
I love it. And I've had success with that same strategy. And one thing I'd layer on top of that is, if you are doing that directionally, really try to aim for 2 or 3 different territories that really feel distinctly different. So you have something that's close in the safety path, something that's a little risky, and then just something that's really stretching the limits, because you don't know where they are until it's too far. That'll help you land that conversation.
Ooh, that's another good ad. Yes, exactly. See where the boundaries are.
Yes. And I think the question also included examples to point to. And a couple of my current brand crushes that I think are doing this well, that are working outside their category. One would be Lemonade. Are you familiar with Lemonade?
Lemonade, insurance company. Mm-hmm.
Insurance. I mean, just hit up their site. They've boring insurance. They've really made it fun, millennial forward. I mean, their color is bright pink, for goodness sakes. And they have amazing social, wonderful editorial content, and they really make it feel easy but smart as the customer as you're navigating through that. So that'd be Lemonade. Another one of my favorites is Robinhood for investing.
Oh, yeah. Another good one.
They have really made something that can seem scary and intimidating, like thinking about where to put your money, feel guided. They have a wonderful series of what is share a word or term of the day that I love. They've invested in content as I think they even have a podcast actually, social, written, PR, podcasting, tons of creative activations. And then Chime, the banking, is another, think about what it could be. It could look like Wells Fargo. If you put Wells Fargo next to Chime, it's pretty night and day. So look, those are a few of my faves.
Agreed. Good ones. Next question here. Dear BAMf, we have probably the classic B2B PR problem. Tons of data, no idea how to leverage it for stories. As our internal head of comms, I've tried getting some insights from our head of sales or our regional sales managers, but this has really gone nowhere. We're a prop tech startup, and it's an extremely busy time in real estate right now, with consumers buying homes in the burbs like crazy. Any ideas on how I can squeeze out insights that I can leverage for stories for the media? Well, this question is just for you, Whitney, I'm sure.
I was just going to say, was this a setup? This was such a good one.
I think we plucked this out of the trove of the questions because given your Zillow experience, yeah.
This is perfect. Well, at Zillow, so I specifically spent the first 5 years of my tenure at Zillow on the ground floor of building our data PR machine. And I say machine because I think that is actually merited to what it was by the end. So Zillow has data on over 150 million homes across the country. And that is such a rich storytelling opportunity if done right. And there was a handful of data franchises from like a biannual consumer sentiment survey to quarterly real estate market reports to weekly mortgage rate releases. All of these are data-driven programs that myself and my team put together to help contextualize and make it really super simple for the media to know who to turn to. In that case, it was Zillow for real estate and mortgage data. And it was not simple or easy. It took time, hard work, persistence, follow-up, relationships, but it paid off. I would say for the person asking this question, they should do a little happy dance because unlike many other categories, they're sitting on a treasure trove of data and it gives them an advantage. And I would recommend that they do a couple of pieces of classic PR best practices. So first would be work backwards. What's the story that you want to be telling with your data? What's the ideal headline? If you could wave your magic wand, what would that headline look like? So start there and use this to inform how you're analyzing data, building your media list, working on sources. So think about what's the story you want to tell. Number 2 would be get close to the customer. Even if your internal resources are being blockers and not wanting to talk to you, which sounds like it may be the case here, that doesn't mean that you can't think on a more macro level about customer trends. So what are the external data that's available about trends impacting people trying to buy homes in this case? Mine those resources and then come back to sales or your other internal stakeholders with a hypothesis for them to validate or rebuke. It's really hard to get a busy person to say, can I talk to you for 30 minutes about trends you're seeing with the customer? They're like, oh, snooze, I have 12 other meetings I should take today. But if you said, hey, Gary, sounds like customers only want to buy tiny homes. Is that true? Whoa, okay. Well, suddenly, Gary needs to talk to you either to tell you that you're right on the money or you're way off in left field. Either way, you've gotten that engagement. And another thing you could do is think of course, about what are these like seasonal trends, whether or not they're serious or silly that you can piggyback on. So that would be second. Third, I would encourage you to supplement. Think about, in addition to the data that you're sitting on, how can you round out that narrative, round out that ideal headline with survey data that you could commission that fills in the gaps with some of the stories that you're trying to tell. So again, stand that up with a simple SurveyMonkey study or something that you've done with your existing community. And if you further need another voice, think about engaging a third-party economist or industry leader to provide some commentary on the category. And then fourth, and this is the hard work of the business, but it's that rinse, wash, and repeat. It takes time and hard work and persistence to build a data franchise and to be the one that media is coming to for sources. So don't give up and just think about how sweet it will be after you've put in all that work, that when you're getting those inbound phone calls from media asking you to comment on your own data or on even someone else's.
There is nothing better than the inbound. Further add, I love your point on start with the end in mind. So we will often think of, well, what is the actual headline? In which outlet do we want? Now, this is totally fictional because we don't control that. It's PR. But when you get down to that crystallized level, it helps then orient and focus, let's say, a survey, because it's easy for clients to go, oh, yeah, let's do a survey. Or, oh, let's see, here's this data. And you're like, oh, blah. There's nothing juicy, interesting in any of this. There is no story in it. But you're like, oh, well, I went ahead and did all this work to go get the thing, to go get the findings, to go get the thing. And you're like, yeah, and nothing. But if you start with the story in mind, which you hope to achieve, again, fictional, that can really tailor in your approach. Again, to your point of asking them specifically, let's say these particular clients, a pointed question, a pointed trend, instead of, oh, I just want to talk for 20 minutes. No one wants to do that, to your point. When you get pointed, because you're like, okay, if I get the answers to topic X, then I can turn that in, then I can get that headline that I hope to be on topic X for that outlet. Okay, let me go ask these now 30 people about what they think on topic X. Now you're honing your focus and hopefully achieving then that outcome. Much more likely to get a response from people who need to then fill you in with their time or your data person. Or we've actually seen this too with internal sales reps. They're like, oh, no. Don't bug my client. That's my client over there. I don't want you calling them. It seems intrusive versus, maybe sometimes they will be flattered or think, oh, that's cool. I'm being tapped for my expertise and commentary. So those are workarounds when you have something pointed and you have that story crystallized, again, fictional. You can keep that, by the way, to yourself. You don't need to tell people that because it's totally fictional. That could help you then focus in. So let's move to our last question then for today, Whitney. Here we go. Dear BAMf, I've got a technical question to hopefully resolve once and for all. My CMO, whom I report to at my tech company, argues that if we give a media outlet a, quote, exclusive, we're then fine to send out the news to other media outlets, say 30 minutes once the piece is live. To me, this is just an embargo and could really piss off a journalist who thought they were getting the one piece of news. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, this is indeed a hot topic. I would have to agree with the CMO and support their current best practice here. And let me tell you why. So if you pre-briefed and gave the exclusive to one specific media outlet, you delivered. You provided them with an exclusive experience and opportunity to tell a 360-degree, well-researched and well-thought-out story. Maybe that included an interview with the founder, or the economist, depending on the topic of it, access to a customer, ability for them to push back, pull on data, ask you to run a different data set, could have had a photo shoot. Now that's what I call an exclusive. And that was the benefit of them knowing, well in advance that you were working on the story and thought to reach out to them. The media receiving the news via a release or a blog post, that is, it was, shipped after it had gone across the wire. Those are standard facts and there's nothing wrong with that, but they're having access to one set of quotes, one set of data, building blocks to tell a solid, decent, respectable story, but it's much more one-dimensional versus this 360 experience that you had when someone was able to enjoy the exclusive with much more time to do the reporting that they wanted.
So it sounds like you're Whitney saying, hey, yeah, CMO is on point with they get the exclusive, they got that juicy story with all the different interviews and everything, and then post that, fair game.
I would agree with that. And I guess to take the contrarian approach, even if you can't stop other media from covering it once it goes live. So they may do it anyway. So at least that you're giving them the facts, all in a nice organized press release or a post on your company blog.
Yes, that is so true. The one thing I will add to this or counter with this, because we have had this on a couple of our Ask Media Anythings, which are just no holds bar QA things that we do, is some of them do get pissed off. Like, oh, well, you gave all those insights also to that one person. So let's say it's like a big data report or something, and you give them that one, the person you said exclusive, and then, oh, 30 minutes later, you send it to everybody. That can feel a little like, well, what the heck? Like, you gave me this one thing. But what you're describing, Whitney, is, hey, you exclusive person had the opportunity to do these interviews, to do these insights, to do all this other stuff, which frankly, no one could lift from a release. That's a very different situation. So in that case, if that's what this person is dealing with in this case, I think you're fair game. And yeah, to your point, once the thing is posted, it's posted. And it's not like any media person is then going to go, oh, wait, well, let me get on the phone with those 7 people that person got to interview. That's not going to be possible. That's their stuff. That's their material. So I think you're good in that case.
That's exactly right. And I think that the posture of, check yourself too. Like, by having the exclusive, you're opening yourself up to a deeper dive from that reporter. And so be ready for that and be able to have a menu of things that you can offer them to make the exclusive worth your time and theirs.
That's another good point, is in order to protect yourself further, if this is your plan of like, oh, but then I'm going to try to allow other media people to get on this, make the exclusive as juicy as possible. Have them do 6 interviews, have them get on the phone with your CTO, have them do stuff that no other person reading a release on the wire would ever get. That'll go a long way.
We took a very similar approach to this actually with the launch of Pacaso. So we had an exclusive with the Wall Street Journal that the reporter was able to, they would have toured the homes in person, but it was, of course, in the middle of the pandemic, but it had virtual tours of the home, spoke to multiple customers. We did a custom photo shoot. We ran a couple snippets of data. They spoke to both the founder and the co-founder. There was a few other things too, forgetting that we layered in, but it made for a really robust, much bigger story and a really thoughtful analysis of our launch. And then other people covered it the day of, and that was fantastic too. But they weren't talking to the customers, that they weren't in the homes, and so it really felt like the reporter was happy, and the other folks who didn't have the exclusive still were able to do a nice job covering the launch as well with a timely news peg.
Thank you for being on today, Whitney. Those are all the questions. We covered everything, as usual, all within our half hour here. Look at that.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love the concept. This rapid fire is wonderful.
Oh, I love it too. It's a lot of fun. And by the way, I'm going to be on your website probably for the next couple hours, checking things out.
Perfect. Please do.
Just because it's dreamy and fun.
Park City's calling your name.
I'm on the listening right now. I go every year for Sundance. So I'm like, oh, wait, look at, you only need $500,000. Okay, 673,000. Okay.
You could be at home your own.
There you go. Then you own it. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Okay. All right. Goals, Whitney. Goals. Thanks for being on again on Dear BAMf.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMf, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show was created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. The music you're enjoying today was composed by Tiffany Dizon, produced by Daniel Kessner, and played by San Diego Symphony's Art of Milan. If you have a tough PR and marketing question you'd like us to answer, write to us at bamtheagency.com/Dear BAMf. Don't forget the F. If you'd like to get notified of our latest episodes, subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.